I was going to ask you about your podcast too, because I want you to be able to plug all your. So
oh,
you have Echo books. I'm going to put all this in the links in the description. I'm going to put your links to your books,
oh,
Echoes 1, 2, 3, and 4, all available on Amazon. You also have a podcast, correct?
yeah. I got a podcast called Strained Brains. I'm not trying to disrespect what you've been through, but we talk a lot about psychedelics. me and this other vet guy, we talk about psychedelics, how that kind of helped us out, opened up some insights. Um,
No, not at all. I think it does.
yeah, have you tried them or?
I was never a psychedelic
Uh,
guy. I feel like my brain was pretty. I played football and had a lot of head injuries. I think my brain was opened up different ways.
gotcha. Yeah. Man, that'll do it. Okay, that might actually be like a scientific. From what I understand, that might be a scientific explanation for some compulsive urges and whatnot. CTE, brain trauma
Yeah,
that contributes to like impulsive and more. It degrades the prefrontal cortex. I'm speaking out of my depth, but basically,
I mean, I had about probably 20 concussions before I was 18 years old, and I played college football too.
oh
So
shit, you play college football. Who'd you play for?
I played at a small school in Maryville, Tennessee.
Still, I mean,
Uh,
getting hit. Damn, I heard like 90% of people who play football, even like high schoolers, they have some
yeah.
form of CTEs, brain trauma. But
Oh man, my family was like, yeah, sending me all kinds of articles and stuff like that because they were all like, yeah, he's obviously got CTE, his brain's deteriorating.
right.
Some validity to it as well, but I also believe that a lot of things can be healed through a spiritual practice, through like we're talking about the things we do on a daily basis. I think the human body, the physiology of the human body, has incredible healing capabilities that we don't even really know about. That we're like tapping into with like we talk about having a positive attitude and like how laughter is a good medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Like that shit, there's basis and real truth there, and I really do believe that healing yourself from within is a powerful medicine. That
Well, it's not just basis. I mean, the placebo effect. Like people talk about the placebo effect, like oh, it's just the placebo. It's not just anything. It's an effect. It's period. The placebo effect
yeah,
is an effect. It's a significant effect. And what you're talking about meditation helping you. Meditation has been proven to like grow the thickness of increase the thickness of your prefrontal cortex. So it's like, yeah, absolutely. I do believe in that stuff. And man, like positive attitude, it's like that is save the day on a lot of occasions. You can't discount it.
like just being positive and be positive. They're technologies. Like people don't see them as technologies, but they're ancient technologies. Like even yoga is a technology. Like exercise, the technologies. Like 12-step program, that's a technology. It's just not. It's not synthetically made from plastic and other parts. It's made from human action.
Right.
It's technology that gets you to a different state.
Yeah. Holotropic breathing that can induce like a DMT level experience. If you, I don't know, for some people, yeah.
I heard Joe Rogan talk about DMT, and I was like, "Oh my god, I gotta try this shit."
It's like when I went to Peru, it's crazy, man. Like I don't want to. I get it, well. Fair warning, I'm not going to do this, but like if I went through the whole experience, it'd be 90 minutes of the whole DMT thing. But like the highlights are like, the guy I went to was like this lanky Welshman. He looked kind of like a goblin. He had like a face like a goblin, but he was charming. He was like a guy out of the way he spoke. He was like a dude out of a Guy Ritchie film, like a Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or some shit. And
Yeah.
I had never done drugs until my mid 30s. Because I was just like you. I was like, I need to try this shit because Joe Rogan makes it sound too good to be true. And so this guy, it's like I took his shit. Long story short, I did his stuff. Like he had me do he had me do it gradually. He's like, try the blunt first, then go do an ayahuasca ceremony. Those are disappointing to me. And then he's like, okay, now you can do what's called a heroic dose. Take 3 tokes off this pipe. And he did it legit. Like he did the Icaros. He was like singing. He spiritually cleansed me supposedly with like this special tobacco and stuff like that. He was singing during the whole thing. But it was just as far as like it actually provided the inspiration for my explanation in Echo 4 of like why everything is the way it is, why existence is the way it is. But in order to
Dude, I gotta get to number 4.
Yeah, it's a long one. So I mean, I'm flattered that you read it all. But basically, what it did for me, that heroic dose, was it viscerally convinced me there is like an underlying order to the universe, and it's good. It's like it's like it's love. Like if I had to put words on it, it was so like Joe Rogan keeps saying, it's like it's beyond words. But if I had to put words on it, it's made out of the essence of like love, laughter, and dreams. So like infinite love, like it's like pure laughter without any judgment or condescension, and then like the infinite, in order to perpetuate its all-encompassing nature, it has to dream itself into limited forms, because the only thing the infinite lacks is limitation. So it viscerally convinced me of that shit. And like later I talked to other people who are like experienced drug users who had done DMT, and they're like, yeah, I'm not gonna say his name. This dude's DMT, it's world class. I don't even know what that means. That's what they said.
DMT it's produced by the pineal gland, right? It's like
it is, yeah. So if you want to talk about tapping it naturally, I don't know if you know who Wim Hof is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like some of his breathing exercises, he claims you can tap the DMT in your pineal gland. And like, he's actually had like, I saw a YouTube one where he had a footballer. He did his breathing stuff. And the guy was hallucinating. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
I think I'd say it's awesome. It is pretty cool. I mean, it's like, because I think not, and getting back to writing a little bit, but just thinking like, I think part of the getting in the flow is getting in that different dimension that where we see the underlying value of the universe is love, laughter, and like you said, it's those things. It's when we get into flow, we're tapping into this source outside of ourselves that I believe is like a full-on God energy, a universal energy that we're all wading through every single day. And when we get into the flow, our bodies are like tuning forks for this energy, and we just tune into something, and I think we can tune to multiple different directions, and we're always in tune of something. It just depends on what that something is, and if we're going to be willing to let it flow through us. It's always there. But that's what like what you're talking about with the DMT, man. I think it's so neat, and I don't begrudge anybody for doing it, or doing drugs or drinking or whatever, because that's all about your path and what you have to go through to get to where you're going.
Right.
And I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't go through the shit I went through.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important for us to like realize that we're kind of tapping into a source outside of ourselves, especially when writing. And if you can kind of find that source, the muse, the whatever it is, it's like just sit down and do it. I think your writing can be so profound and artistic. It's like it doesn't even feel like it's coming from me anymore. It's coming from something else.
I suspect that's I want to believe that's the case, and I suspect that's the case. But I think like even if that's not the case, just like you can make a practical argument for all the other stuff. You can make practical arguments. So it's like, so my point is like just all the stuff, the lessons that arise from the idea of maybe there is this benevolent source that creates and encompasses all of existence. All the lessons and premises that come from that, those are all still practical too. So you don't even have to believe. That's my point. It's like, be a good guy to the people around you, walk the hero's path, or that's if that's too dramatic, be a problem solver and help people around you. It's in the long term, it's still practical. You know what I mean? But yeah, personally, I do believe, I do suspect that what you're saying is true, because it's just like some of the ideas I come up with. It's just like I have no idea where that came from.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in Simon Sinek, I don't know if you know him, but he talks about it a lot. In the hormones that are actually produced through doing good things for other people, oxytocin and serotonin and all these things, like doing good things, checking things off your list, like living a certain way, like your body actually produces certain hormones when you do these things to give you like that rush of feeling good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Also, a lot of what we're talking about. I don't know. Are you familiar with Alan Watts?
Yeah, I like the. What was that? There's this one little clip they have of. It was basically explaining like why there is suffering. Like what would unlimited being do? And he's like, at first he'd create a life for himself where he's like doing all this crazy, like slaying dragons and having sex with like all these girls or whatever, and then eventually he would place himself in a position where he just forgot that he was unlimited, and then like he would live like all these mundane problems, you know, because he would have to exhaust all the possibilities. So yeah, I love that.
I love that. I remember listening to that one. I love that one too. It's because you're just like, oh my god.
Yeah, it explains everything, right?
Yeah, it does. It really does. Wow, man, we've covered a lot of shit.
Yeah. I could talk about all that stuff. Like I'm sure, like just like you, man. It's like I had the one day I decided to try a podcast on a lark, and I'm sure just like you, it's just like all this shit just came flowing out of my mouth. I was like, man, I didn't realize, because I don't talk to people in real life that much, you know. I just keep my mouth shut. But yeah, for some reason, like I think the way I described it was like if I go to party, I don't go to parties anymore, or if I go to a bar, I don't go to the bars anymore either. But you know, in those situations, I find it hard to talk about the latest TV show, you know, or you know, clothing or cars and stuff like that. But you start talking about like deeper existential stuff, I'm like, yeah, I'll fucking run my mouth for hours, you know.
Well, it's exciting. Like the surface stuff it's like, okay, it's been covered. The weather's been covered.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when we talk about existential stuff, it's like when we talk to each other or other people about it, we get to a point of like, this person's tapping into something I didn't know, and we're kind of like bouncing off like sound waves just bouncing off each other, like, you know, reverberating through the universe of like, oh, maybe this is it, because for some reason it rings true, right? And not necessarily know why, but like just the talking about it is like, you were talking about your musings, like writing it out. How does it feel to you? How does it experientially happen in your life? It's kind of like that with us, you know, talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you talking about it. It is, for me, it is what writing has been about, because it is another avenue. And writing was my first avenue for creativity, because nobody had to look at me. Like, I was terrified of the world. I could sit at my computer and write all of my thoughts out and process all of the horrible shit in my life, and without somebody like feeling like somebody's pointing a finger at me, like, you're disgusting, you're a horrible person, you know?
Right.
And what's grown from that is all this other shit I'm doing. And honestly, Trent Foster and the Council of 10, my second book, was about that. It's how we are completely unlimited. And I realized, like, something clicked in my mind while writing the book, is everything and anything that I want in life is completely on the table if I do it. Like, even writing the book, like, I was thinking, I'm rewriting my own life by writing this book about this character where anything is possible. And that was like a mind-blowing experience for me. It was like, holy shit, I'm capable of doing anything at this point. Like, just write about it, and you're doing whatever you want to do.
Right.
You know,
yeah. Like
it's amazing.
Yeah, writing is like I'm pretty sure. Well, I'm not pretty sure. Like, let me ask you this. Like, I don't know if you had this experience when you first started writing. Like, I wrote some stuff in Echo that's kind of similar to what I went through, and I was like, well, that's my fucking life. So I don't know what else. Actually, after the first chapter, I was like, well, I kind of went through something like that. So I don't know what else to write. I don't know how to get to that climax I was envisioning in the beginning. And then I was like, let me stop thinking about what other people want me to be. You know, let me remove these blocks of I can't from my head. And then it's like the words just start coming, you know. But at first there was a period where I was like, I was bouncing it off my now ex-wife, and I was like, is this too brutal? Is this what do people think of this? What do people think of that? And then it's just like, fuck it, you know, worry about that in the editing process, but just fucking let it go while you're drafting. It's just like, let it go. I don't know if you went through something like that, but when you started writing.
I did, man. Well, yeah, because in working the 12-step program, writing the fourth step is like writing all the horrible things you've ever done in your entire life.
Right.
And that was very traumatic. It's like a difficult experience, you know, and it got me to a point where, like, okay, Matt, here's the deal. You want to be a writer, you have to write, okay? You want to be a good writer, you have to write every day, and you have to be real about some shit and get authentic. And the only way to do that is I had to realize that nobody else is going to read this right now. Like, just write it, man.
Right.
And be okay with just writing it. And once I started being okay with just getting the shit out and stop worrying about all these other, like the meditation, right? Like getting everybody else's voices outside of my head, like you were talking about, it became such a freeing thing that I can write whatever the hell I want on a piece of paper. I don't give a shit. Like I can, I can, and it's lended to me being able to walk into a room and do things that other people wouldn't do, or like things that I didn't think I was capable of, because now I know that, yeah, I'm capable of doing it, and it's gonna look how it's gonna look. Like living a life that looks like art.
Right. You know,
It's objective.
I want to highlight that point. Are you sure? Do you have a time schedule? I don't want to infringe on your time. I remember.
I've got me and my girlfriend do bedtime stories. I was actually going to ask you about this too after at the end, but we do a thing called bedtime stories where I read from parts of the books of the authors I interview, and then we give away a book. We do a live recording, a dramatic reading, and then we give away some of the copies of the book.
Well, I just want to make sure, like you're the head honcho here. You direct me. I don't want to infringe on your time. No, let me know if I'm running.
I probably got another 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
And then I probably.
So I wanted to. People ask me about writing, and I'm certainly no expert. Like if anybody wants to learn the ins and outs of writing, I suggest starting with Stephen King's On Writing. But what you highlighted, I think, was key to me, and I always suspected. I'll get into exactly what you said that rang true with me. I always suspected this was kind of like the key to creativity, because to go back a few minutes, you talked about when you wrote down the bad things you had done to people, and it was traumatic, right? And you just kind of faced up to it. Well, I really didn't start getting creative until, just to myself, I admitted like these 5 dark secrets, and it was these secrets. They weren't criminal. They weren't, they weren't abusive or anything like that. It's not like it, but they were just like deeply embarrassing to me, to the point where there's certain memories that you don't like, that you don't even consider unless somebody you don't even acknowledge, unless like their existence they don't exist in your mind unless somebody actually points your attention to them. It's like you don't, you know what I mean? And to me, I just like blank these memories out almost, and I force myself to look at them and to be like, yeah, this is who you are, but you're not that anymore. And it was just it was tough while I was doing it. And later I did it. I openly admitted them to a friend, and I was just to make sure. But the point was that didn't change anything. What was majorly significant was when I actually admitted them to myself. And that's actually when I started being able to write. I tried to write before, but nothing had come of it. But I think the secret to creativity, this is just my speculation, mind you, is that you have to be comfortable with your own darkness and embrace it and be willing to. Because in my mind, to use a tech analogy, it's like those things take up a lot of processing power. Once you free that up, it's like, fine, you can be a channel for the transcendent, which includes light and darkness. You're not jamming up the pipes so much anymore. And I think I'm not sure if your writing correlated with that exercise you did in AA, but as far as me, like. Just admitting that shit to myself, that it definitely correlated with my being able to write.
Yeah, 100%. And it's because it's like when we ignore the things, I feel like when we just brush them off to the side, it's like we're not dealing with the stuff, the mess that we've created.
Right.
And so it's always going to be there, and we're just stepping over it on a daily basis, and it's always going to be there. And we'll step over it when we're aware of it, but when we're not aware of it, it can come up and trip us up.
Yeah.
And so like getting that shit cleaned up and getting it out of the way and realizing that I'm not the same person that did those things. Like I'm a new creation kind of every moment, every day. Like as long as I'm moving in a certain direction. And I was thinking about this because the podcast was, you had to get your phone set up, and I was like, crap, I should have gotten more prepared and done this better. And I was like, and I had the thing recording on my computer, and I was like, man, you gotta just try to get better every day, even if it's 1 foot, hell, even if it's half a foot. And then I was like, well, fuck, even if it's just a toe or like a little toe, just like a little bit better than you were the day before, that's enough. It's like just keep trying to get better, because as long as we ignore those things, then we're never truly going to become anything different than what those things made us or what we were during those times. Like we have to acknowledge.
Absolutely.
That's a wonderfully place.
That's my theory on old people who not old people in general, but like people who old people who like Like, okay, so I consider Joe Rogan not old, even though he's like 50 something, or like even if he was like 80, I wouldn't, if he had the mentality he has right now, I wouldn't consider him old, because he's open, he's questioning, he's experimenting, he's checking
Yeah.
himself. He's not, he's like talking about where he could have been wrong. Like, he's not like a complete, he's reevaluated his stance on marijuana. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying, like, he's like, his stance now is like, it's not good for everyone. There's like a few people it fucks up. And I'm like, because he's looking at the evidence. So I feel like that view keeps them young. But the opposite, where people just become more and more entrenched in protecting their dark secrets and keeping their same routines, I feel like that mentally ages somebody. And I feel like it probably it carries over to the physical. It probably physically has bad deleterious effects as well. But yeah, I see it in some of my friends. They come to me and they're like, "Man, I'm fucking, I don't know what to do, man." And it's they're stuck in the same situation, girl, finance, or whatever. I'm like, and I'm thinking, like, this is kind of a dilemma for me. I don't know about you. You've been through the darkness. Like, I feel like somebody's got to come to that point where they decide to do what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
just look around and be like, what can I do to improve? What did I do last time that's wrong? What can I do different this time? I feel like that's almost, you can tell somebody that, but a lot of times it doesn't take. Maybe I'm probably just not skillful enough, but I feel like the majority of it has to come from their own accord. Like, they have to come to that position themselves.
Yeah, and that's why in the program it talks about you have to hit rock bottom.
Right.
Like for alcoholics, you have to hit rock bottom. You got to get to a point where you're desperate and you'll try anything. Like, that was for me. Like, I was at a point where it was either I was going to die or I was going to start doing some work.
Yeah.
And even the smallest amount of work was better than dying the way I was dying, because it was misery.
Right.
It was like being in hell, my version of hell. And the only, I think, like you said, we have to come to a point, because nobody's going to tell me, nobody can do the push-ups for me. Nobody can take the bottle out of my hand. Nobody can, do anything. Like, they can't work a job for me. Nobody can live my life. I have to come to the understanding that it's my life to live. And if I want it to be a good one, I better be willing to put in some freaking work to make it good. But yeah, it's got to be a personal decision.
Right.
For sure. Otherwise, like, I've seen people go into the program, the courts forced them. Like, my ex-wives have asked me to go in, and doesn't matter about the kids or how I lost businesses and cars and a home, and like, it doesn't matter what I lost. I didn't give a shit about losing that thing. It had to be so painful within. It had to be a spiritual death, like, to where I was so done spiritually, mentally, physically, that I had to find something different.
Right.
And people never get to that point in their life, and so they just kind of go about living, like you said, like that old person mentality, where it's just like hanging on to the same rituals and ideas that they've had their entire life, and ages of human.
Yeah. And tying it back to what you're saying about the muse, I know I have a good friend who's an artist. Like, he has an MFA, graduated from art school. And I'm sure tons of writers. And the mentality I speak of, I feel, is pretty prevalent among a lot of creative types I've met, is that, oh, I gotta do these things. I gotta go on a walk, and I gotta have my special my special coffee, my special rituals, my doll, whatever. And then inspiration will come to me, right? The muse will come to me. And I'm like, to me, this is my personal experience. The only real tribute you can pay the muse, the truest tribute, is you sit down when there's no inspiration whatsoever, and you just make a shitty draft anyways. You type out, whatever, 1,000, 2,000 shitty words anyways, and do that day after day. Maybe it's a week. And then, after you've given the muse, that's the payment the muse takes. And then they'll give you the inspiration, and it's the same with, you're talking about, like, keeping an open mind. To me, it's like, for a lot of people who, in order to maintain, and I feel like you'll understand this. So you've come to a point in your life where you hit, you see where you want to go, and you know what you're willing to do. And in order to maintain that, it's like you pay with discipline. You pay with the immediate discomfort. And to me, that immediate discomfort is actually a small death. It's not like the giant death that some people
Yes.
might need. It's not like the giant death where you hit the rock bottom and you might not even survive that. You know, some people might not survive that. To me, it's much more preferable to pay the small death over and over again in order to keep the majority of myself alive. Because if enough of that rot in your body, in this metaphor, builds up, and you have to pay the big death, like you may not come back, or you may be crippled forever. You know.
No, that's so funny you brought that up, because I think about that every morning when I run on the treadmill, and I'm like, oh my God, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
I hate it, and I'm like thinking to myself, well, that's the fat me dying a little bit every single, like that's the one who hates running, who loves Cheetos and cake.
Oh, yeah.
And I've lost 100 pounds 3 different
Holy
times
shit.
in my life.
That's awesome, man.
And yeah, well, like every time, and I hope I don't ever have to do it again, but because it is a pain in the ass, honestly. No, it is. It's like dying those small deaths. Like every time you can't breathe a little bit, every time your legs are aching or the pain is there, it's like some part of you is dying. It's that weakness dying. And people talk about it like pain, or what is it? Sweat is, or what is
pain
it?
Pain is weakness leaving the body.
Weakness leaving the body. Yeah.
Yeah.
That weak part of you is dying a little bit more every time.
And then that's like the next step up to me is when somebody has their dogma, you know, has their, like you said, the rituals. And sometimes it's more comfortable for them to just be in constant discomfort, but in the wrong direction, you know, and it's like way more, it'll like shatter their idea of who they are to shift direction and put effort into the right path, you know, and
yeah, my girlfriend likes to say it's the devil, you know, right?
Right. Yeah. It's, you know, taking on that devil you don't know, that to me is like, that's one of the hardest things to do. I think that's like, it's basically, I mean, I'm waxing eloquent here, or trying to wax eloquent, but basically it's just keeping an open mind and being willing to ditch what doesn't work. That's really what it comes down to, but it's so fucking hard a lot of the time, you know?
Yeah. And there is a lot of physiology to it. Like a lot of times I'll do my best writing after I work out and I meditate, because physiologically I'm in a different state of mind. Or like I'll do some of my best videos after I work out because I'm in a lifted state physically. And I think a lot of people, you know, we sit all day long at work behind a computer doing this stuff, and we don't realize that our physiology is, you know, shrunken, small, depressed body length, you know?
Yeah.
And so what I've been doing, and I do this before interviews too, because I have to get into a certain state. Like I love talking to people, but sometimes I'm just fucking tired, man.
Yeah.
And I literally go in the bathroom, I look at myself, and I do some of the weirdest shit and scream and yell. I have to get myself out of I have to get myself out of the state of tired, out of the state of poor me. Like, why do I have to do another thing?
Right.
Life is so hard. And I'm like, okay, because what happens is the ridiculousness of it triggers something in my brain. Like, oh, wait a second. Like it just throws me back onto course. Like, oh, you can do this. Is simple. Like you're just having a conversation. This is easy.
Right.
You know, don't make it more than it is. And like you're a good person. You're smart and talented, and you can do whatever you want to do. Just get into a physiology where you believe that. And Tony Robbins talks a lot about physiology.
Love that guy. But, and you know, I didn't mean to disrespect, you know, any rituals or stuff that surrounded like the creative pursuits. It's just that what I was referencing is it seems a lot of creative people use the absence of those rituals to just not do any work. So it's like, if I don't have this, I can't write at all, or I can't do this. You know, I'm just like, I mean,
it's kind of like the same as having an addict mindset too, though, right? Like if I don't do these things, like if I don't have a drink, I can't write creatively. I don't smoke a joint, I can't get creative.
Right.
Kind of idea.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind
of, yeah. I mean, like, I feel, I think I'm not saying that you shouldn't do. I think it's good to do those things, but the point is that you write. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Bottom line.
Right. So it's like when other people are like, well, I didn't write today, or I didn't write no, it's not even like that. You know, that's kind of like a lot of people. It's like, I don't even get into people's shit like that. I'm just it's just, okay. For example, it's like, I have a friend who, when I started Echo, he had this idea for like a fantasy series. Right. And then it's like almost 4 years later and and you know, maybe all he's got is some scribbles in a notebook, you know. And he's much more, he would use those excuses. He was very precious about his rituals. And what you're doing, the counterpoint to what you're doing, you seem like you're using them as actual tools. You're not using them as excuses because you're actually doing the shit. You're getting shit done. You know, I'm all about that. I'm just not about like, hey, I couldn't do it because of this, because of that. I'm like, well, I mean, that may be valid over a year, a week, or maybe a day, maybe, but over years, not so much, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like me saying if I didn't meditate or exercise or whatever, I can't do the work that I have scheduled for the day. It's like if I have something scheduled, I need to get the work done no matter what.
Right, right.
And somebody asked me on my blog, they were like, how do you put out this content every day that has some sort of meaning to it? And the only thing I responded with, I mean, I have these things that I do, but in all honesty, I go with the authenticity of what I feel because I do a lot of it just about like what's going on with me, what I'm dealing with that day. And if I'm being true to myself and I write how I feel, then there's always some insight that I have. Like we talked about the musings and stuff. There's always some insight that I have that's different than somebody else may have, and I can put it maybe into words that are a little bit easier to understand. But if I'm trying to be honest or dishonest and just write some shit, some fluff that I think I want to write as opposed to what I feel is actually happening, then it's not going to make any sense. Like I just write from a place of where I feel I am. And whether it's good or bad for some people, there's always going to be somebody it connects with. There's always going to be somebody it doesn't connect with. It's not my job to pick out who it is. It's my job to get the shit out. Right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Mitzi Shore said she used to run the Comedy Store. She passed away recently, but she was like, you know, if you're looking for stardom, you know, if you want to be good in this business as a comedian, you have to be the kind of comedian that some people hate and some people like. Yeah. And I was thinking about that. I was like, why wouldn't you want to be the one that everybody likes, right? And I was thinking about it. I was like, because that's not true. That's not truth, right?
Right.
People, that's not how truth reflects through people. Because some people, when there's something that's really true, some people don't like it. Some people like it, you know. And in order to reflect the truth and have it have that resonant contagiousness, communicability, you know, a sign of that is that some people will like it, will like the shit, and some people won't. So yeah, it's like if you're going deep enough into your own life and your feelings, that's like you're starting to tap something universal, in my opinion, because everybody at the core begins to become more and more similar. So
yeah, I agree. Universe, it means one note.
Right.
We're all kind of riding the wave, man.
Yeah, exactly. But
dude, this has been pretty amazing. I'm gonna be real honest with you here. I was kind of nervous about this because I think your writing style is fantastic and it's something totally different. But like from the language you use, I was kind of nervous to talk to you because I didn't know if you were going to be like a jerk or not.
Oh, because there's a bunch of assholes in my book.
Yeah, but but just because I think it was like 3 weeks in to my blog, I think I wrote a comment on one of your blogs, and you reached out to me and you gave me your email address. And just how friendly and nice you've been through the whole process. Like, and another, reason why I'm doing this is because I feel like connecting people is so important.
Right.
Writing can be a solitary thing, but it doesn't have to be. And if we can, kind of lift one another up and like share our stories with each other, it becomes a much more enjoyable process. And just commending you for, being a person who's willing to give out their email address to somebody they have no idea who it is, and then accept the invite to, do an interview. It's awesome. I really appreciate it, and you've changed my opinion. Not my opinion.
Well, dude, I'm flattered that you had me on your podcast. Believe me, everything you're feeling, I'm just like, man, it's all reflected in me. I'm just, I'm still at this point. I haven't even made it. I definitely haven't made it. I'm just like, why is anybody interested in my work?
You've written 4 books and you're selling those books. You've got 20,000 plus followers on your blog. I don't know how many people listen to your podcast, but you've probably sold a lot more books than a lot of people in self-publishing is a difficult thing like we talk about, but you've probably sold a lot more than a lot of people.
Right. But I mean, it's just, okay. So like objectively you can make those arguments. It's just, I'm trying to make a subjective argument where it's like, I'm not that, I guess I'm just looking at my shit every day, and I'm just like, it's not that great. I'm trying to make it as error free as possible. That's pretty much. I'm just trying to solve the problem, like I said earlier. But I'm flattered that you reached out to me, man. So it's all good. As far as I think are you talking about the language I use in my ads or my books?
Just all around.
Okay, all around. Yeah, okay. Well, it's like as far as that stuff goes, it's part of why I took a pen name. It's have you ever noticed, like, okay, let's go to the extreme end. You go to a raunchy comedy movie, right? And
Yeah.
you got like cum jokes, shit joke. You got like the most disgusting stuff like flying all over the screen, and people in the theater are just howling. They're just belly laughing, right? But
Yeah.
you try to you try to tell that same joke or have 1/10 of that raunchiness at, like, just hanging out with other folks, and they're gonna give you like this look like, who you're a fucking deviant, dude.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like everybody thinks that shit. Everybody thinks like that dirty and that nasty, because otherwise that comedy wouldn't sell. It would have no impact. Maybe not everybody, but it's like a good amount of people do. So it's like there is a part of me, that's all philosophical and stuff, and there's a part of me, that's still back in hanging out around a fire after in the field and just like cracking like nasty ass jokes with the boys, So it's just like that's the part that comes out with the ads, and then like the brutal part comes out in Echo, and then so forth and so forth. So it's not like but yeah, like if I was hanging out with my buddies, I might be like you might see that part of me, you know what I mean? Like over the phone, it's like it's a different thing,
I think it's fine, right? It's each their own kind of deal.
Right,
And
right.
I think it's like I have an open mind about it. I try to keep an open mind to everything, because if I believe that I know how God is going to show up or something's going to show up in my life, that's pretty arrogant of me to be like, oh well, this guy uses profane language, so he has nothing good or of value. And it's like, well, hold on a second. I have a lot in common with you in terms of how we think, in the processes of the universe and all that kind of stuff. And if I were to like close my mind off because you say some vulgar words, that's pretty silly of me,
Right, right.
And that's one of the things you're talking about, like a old mentality. It's like, don't shut yourself off to the world because it offends you.
Right.
Like, look at it. Why does it offend you? And then see what you can learn from it.
Right. I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, like you sound like you're dealing with some pretty dark subject matter yourself, with the zombies and stuff. Like your theme is pretty much my theme. Like, I was listening to you talk about your books. Your theme it's pretty much the evolution of ignorance into awareness. If you want to be reductive about it, and that's I just phrased it in kind of like maybe it's a fairly clean manner, but that's a brutal process. And it's like you can use foul language or whatever, but it's like there has to be something raw about it. Has to be something raw and genuine about it. I mean, I've got plans to. One of the reasons like Echo was so profane is like, well, it's actually not as profane as like how how like a lot of how the real military is, So I actually felt I toned it down, but regardless of that, it's and it's actually not as exciting, and the real military is not nearly as exciting as Echo. It's not nearly as exciting. It's a lot way more boring. But regardless of all that, like that was kind of a familiar starting point for me. I was just like, okay, I kind of know this mentality and these interactions, and I'll cut out the stuff that that just kind of that'll be a drag on the narrative. And from there, there's other things I do throughout the Echo 2 is like all action stuff. Like even the action scene in Echo 1, there's a knife fight, right? Or a hand, it's kind of like a brawl with some weapons involved. And I was looking at it and I was like, I don't know what it's like to get stabbed. I don't know what it's like to fucking try and stab somebody or smash somebody's face with a baton, And so like I'm going to get to the point, but basically what I do throughout this series, it isn't like overly stated, but I'm trying to push the bounds of what I can do. So you'll actually see the swearing kind of taper off as my writing skills grow better. Like you won't see it as much in 3 and 4. You'll see me write from the perspective of a woman in 3, and actually now I'm writing a book from the perspective of three teenagers. And I plan to, after that, is to try my hand at young adult without, maybe like, I'm not going to use the F-bomb, I might use ass, maybe shit. I don't know. But it's like, I'll probably stick with like damn and hell, if I have to, but I as a writer, I need to try and see if I can convey a narrative punch without like without in a more subtle way. I need to be able to cater to different audiences, and that to me is like part of me not trying to be stuck in the old men mentality, where it's like, I need to be able to expand my toolkit. You know what I mean? It's like cool. It's cool that I started with what I had, but it's just like you said, it's not just about like crawling out of rock bottom. It's like, once you're out of there, it's like, keep going, keep climbing up that hill, see what you can do,
Yeah.
But so, yeah, long story short.
Limiting yourself to one genre, one audience.
Right.
But yeah, you're growing. That's important, because the artist can sit back and say, well, this is my art and this is how I do it. And if people don't like it, well, then get the fuck out of my way. But if, their main objective is to like reach people and inspire, or like change, and not change, but like hopefully help them see a new perspective on life, well, then it's important that we learn how to communicate in that way.
Right.
So that,
yeah, that's all basic human nature, leadership, psychology stuff. It's like, I was at so like, here's a more mundane example. I'm at work. I'm at an office job now, but I go to my boss pulls me in, and she's like, these people, these subordinates, they're not doing what I want them to. They're not paying attention to these things and whatever. They're screwing up the case so that I have to do more work on the back end. And I'm like, well, there's two ways to motivate people, and one is positive, and the other is pain. And so it's like, I was like, so when you do it positively, I mean, I don't know what speaks to your people, like in the military, like if I was put in a position of leadership, I was like, okay, I wasn't going to wave a flag or anything, if I was in charge of a bunch of young, crazy guys, I'm not going to like appeal to I'm not going to recite stuff from the Constitution and play like some fucking patriotic music in the background. That's not how to motivate them. That's not what they're all about right now. They're young, crazy guys. So I was like, what I told them was like, look, if you guys do a job for me, I'll fucking run interference for you. Make sure you do as little stupid shit as possible. I'll get you off work as early as possible, because I know that I didn't say this part, is I knew these guys wanted to go out in town and tear it up. They want to get drunk. They wanted to hook up with girls and whatever, or whoever. And so I was like, that worked. That spoke to their motivations. And so like, when I'm in this office job and my boss is like, how did I basically just like, I don't know how to motivate these people. I was like, well, you have to figure it out. And she's like, what? You have to figure out what speaks to an individual. She's like, what? Doing a good job is enough? I was like, no, it's not. It's the same thing. It'd be the same thing as me, like, we're, like making some cheesy patriotic speech and waving the flag in the background, trying to motivate all these young hard chargers, So, man, I really have lost the thread of conversation. I didn't know where I started with that, but
it's finding your audience.
Yeah, it's finding your audience, right? So, and yeah, okay. So I'll tie it back. So we went into the pain part, and basically, long story short, I was like, you can't, if you're motivating people through pain, they have to know you're doing it for their best interests, and you have to be shit hot yourself. You can't be, they can't look at you and be like, well, she's bringing the pain, and she's a piece of shit herself, because then we're going to start subtly sabotaging her. Because so like motivating people through pain is a lot trickier. You have to be impeccable yourself in order to do that well. It's just better in general to motivate through positivity. But anyways, speaking to the audience, like, so you have to know kind of like these basic human drives. And what I tell people to get over, what helps me get over writer's block is contemplating how Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are you familiar with that? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So it's like survival's at the bottom, then it's like, I forget how it's tiered, but it's procreation, self-actualization is at the top. So once the concept is like, you have, for all the listeners, I know that you already know this, but once you have survival in place, basically you can start catering to these other needs, right? So speaking to your audience is, to me, perceiving how those needs are iterated through a certain individual. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, I have this soldier guy. Like, how is that hierarchy of needs iterated through him? Right now, he's got the survival covered. He doesn't really care about the procreation. He has, like I mentioned it later, he has sex and he doesn't really care about relationships. Like, but he's kind of like he's kind of like worried about the self-actualization stuff, right? He doesn't really know what to do. So he's kind of like he's getting into trouble. He's like contemplating, things that he might never have in the past, that kind of thing. So when you speak to your audience, or when you communicate with any individual, actually, I feel like knowing those needs and thinking like, how is this person, what is this, where's this person getting hung up on that ladder of needs, and how do I address that? To me, that's speaking to somebody, not just on a service level, but archetypally, like through an archetypal level of conversation, where you're speaking to the genetic encoding in them. So that, it's a completely different thing. Like when you speak to somebody, in my opinion, when you speak to somebody archetypally, you know, when you speak to some like it resonates. There's actually like almost a physical, like, have you read a book that really resonated with you? There's a physical sensation that comes with that.
Right.
To me, it feels like a giant expansion in my head. Like it's like it's as if like these invisible weights had dropped away from my brain. And it's the same sensation I get like when I'm walking through a forest and then I come out onto a cliff and I get to see the ocean. It's just this like this giant vast feeling of peace and expansiveness.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what being able to speak to your audience, if you're really good at it, that's what you should be able to induce. So,
wow, deep shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about it like that, but there's so many people who are just on the base level, like just trying to survive.
Right.
Even if they have their survival set, like they don't realize that their survival is they're fine.
Yeah.
It's almost people create drama to make it seem like that base level is always at risk. It's always there. It's always, they're always in fear of or in danger of getting killed or mauled or whatever. When in reality, their survival has been set for a long time. And it's like, okay, it's time to move on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's like you're good on this level. Like go up the levels. Because if you don't start going up, climbing that ladder of needs, then you start getting, I don't know. I feel like you starve in some sense. It just eats away at you.
I kind of had that feeling when I was in my drinking, and like I realized that I was surviving even though I was pouring gallons of poison down my throat every single day. I was still somehow, I was eating. I was like, I still had like sexual relationships with females. It's like I was still doing like all these things that I still had. I was still surviving, and I was literally doing the worst things humanly possible for myself,
Right.
not fulfilling myself whatsoever. I thought, man, your survival has never been in question, my friend. You are going to be fine no matter, like, I've lived out of my car, I've been homeless, like walking on the like, and I've always survived, even through the worst parts.
Right.
What if you go after the things you really want to do and you start living the life you really want to live? Do you think that you might be able to do a little bit better than surviving if you made it through that fucking hell? Like, and then it clicked with me. I was like, oh, well, that's a stupid question. Yeah, I should be able to be okay.
Right. But here's the thing, though. Like, let me ask you this. Okay. Say you're going for these things and you something God forbid, or just like you get a fell swoop of chance, something stupid happens, like a meteor lands on you or whatever, let's keep it extreme, building falls on you, skyscraper falls on you or whatever. What in that moment when you realize, like, oh shit, I'm about to exit this earth and I didn't get out, I didn't do what I set out to do. How are you going to feel about that?
What's it, right? Like, I had always felt like this was like when I was drinking, I felt like that was all there was for me. Like I was, my dad's an alcoholic. He just kind of like pissed away his life and never really did anything with it. I thought, well, that's me, and I'm going to be that way. And I really don't have anything to offer the world. It wasn't until I started writing, and I actually did have a scare about 5 months ago. And it was like life at that moment seemed like it was about to be taken away from me.
Uh-huh.
And it was the first time in my life I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to tell the stories that I want to tell. All these amazing things that I thought I was going to be able to do are never going to come to fruition. It was the very first time in my life that it ever happened for me. And I knew then that I was on the right path, that I was on the path to doing something that was worthwhile, because the whole rest of my life before that was all like, I don't give a shit if I die. Like I was doing things basically to kill myself every day.
Right.
And it wasn't until that point I was like, well, then I'm doing the thing I need to be doing. And that's a pretty profound moment. And I don't think a lot of people get it, honestly, but it's, where you feel tied to the world. Like, oh, life is really good.
Yeah.
There is something more to life than drinking yourself to death, than going to a 9 to 5, being miserable with the person you're married to, or the things you think you're supposed to have. It's like there's so much more. And finally realizing that was like, man, it was a pretty amazing feeling.
Yeah,
but
I know I know what you're talking about. Look, I'll expound. I'll tell you more about. I don't want to explore that a little further, but basically, to kind of encapsulate it is, I felt the same with Echo 4. It was just like, I got to finish this series. This is basically my life's work. You know, I didn't realize it when I was little, but this is like what I was made to do, is write Echo. And then afterwards, I was just like, yeah, I guess I'm good now. Like, I'll keep writing, but I guess all I have to do is enjoy the rest of my life to the best of my ability. And Tarantino, apparently, I found this out later, when he was writing Pulp Fiction, he was cocky as hell. He was like, nothing. Like, I don't give a fuck if this plane crashes. I'm going to be the only survivor. You know, like, I'm meant to write Pulp Fiction. And then afterwards, he became terrified. Once he finished it, he was like, oh shit, you know, like, I've done what I'm supposed to do. But to me, I'm just like, well, you know, there's points in my life where I was ready to end it before anyway. So I'm just like, I'm not going to do that. But I'm just now it's just time to kind of enjoy and push myself to the best of my ability. But it seems like, do you have specific works that make you feel like, do you have specific concepts in your head that you're going to write for sure that make you feel like that? Like, oh, these are my life. These things are going to be my life's work, and I need to get them done.
You know, I think the stuff I've written so far has opened me to that point. But I think, to your point, like, this is what I've done now. You know, now I can just enjoy my life. I think my life's work, like, I had to get this shit out. I had to get those stories out. It's now become like, okay, how can I help the people that are struggling in between? Like, my whole thing now, and this came to me, you know, without even realizing. I thought, and I still think, you know, I have a vision board and a goal board with all the things that I want to accomplish as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And like, number one, I've got the top 13 writers of all time, with like William Shakespeare at 4.5 billion books sold. And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you, Bill.
yeah.
I still have that idea in my mind, but I also think that my mission in life is to be of service to other people in a way that only I can. Like, I talked about having that best-selling story encoded in all of us.
Right.
My number one mission when I started writing was, I want to inspire and motivate other people. I want to become even a 1% better tomorrow than I was today, and I want to continue to grow in that direction. And I feel like the things that I've written, the things that I'm doing, are all channels for that to come to fruition. And whether I write another book or not, or do another podcast, or make another YouTube video, or whatever, like, I feel like I'm doing those things because I'm connecting with people on a level that I didn't even realize was possible. And it's been such a profound thing to realize how connected we all are.
Right.
You talked about this 2 hours ago when we first started, but about how shit. Just totally lost the train of. No, where'd it go? We're all connected. I hate when that happens. Shit. But no, it's my mission to be of service to other people, because we are all connected. And oh yeah, about changing yourself first, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I've had this dream since I was a little kid, and I don't know where it came from, but like, I've had this idea that I want to change the world. And it's like this thing that's like, well, Matt, that's a stupid idea. Like, you're not going to change the world. You're one person. But then I think to myself, well, maybe I can change my world, right? Like we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah.
But if I change my world and I speak to another human being, and whatever happens in that conversation, if they feel lifted to some degree more than they were when we started, did I not just change that person's world somewhat? And I've seen it in these interviews, man, when I talk to people from the beginning, where they're kind of like, they're a little bit, you know, disconcerted, and they're not used to being on camera, and they're worried about talking about their work. And at the end, where they're completely lit up and excited about it, and then when I get done talking to them after the interview's out, and how thrilled they are with it, and it's like, okay, it's not necessarily me, but like, what I did was change the state of that person's world from one moment to the next. And if I do that enough times with enough people, like, maybe that's not, you know, it's a very slow way to do it, but I'm changing my world every day. And then two, I'm trying to change other people's world one person at a time. And maybe my level will raise to where I can do it to more people. But, until that point, I just have to do it where I can.
Well, I mean, I don't even think there's a just have to do it, or I don't think there's a maybe. So like I can see where this feels like an amplification of what got you out of the dark part of your life, right? Do what you can. But and I when people talk about like futility and stuff, and I tell them do what you can. I always qualify it with this. It's like do what you can. That phrase is usually people poo-poo it, right? They're like, do what you can. To me, it's not that at all. Because, okay, so Nelson Mandela, for whatever faults, maybe he did some egregious shit when he was younger or whatever. But look, here's what I take from his life that's constructive to me. It's like, dude gets thrown in prison, right? And he's like fucking forgotten. He's fucking breaking rocks, it's basically written off for the rest of his life, right? And doing the little things, like taking care of his appearance, being nice to the guards. I mean, he goes from that being completely forgotten to like, I mean, the rest of the story, where he's like, he's like, he gets out and he's president or whatever, and then he restrains himself from the vengeful path, and it's like that's what do what you can get you. It can get you from being completely fucking forgotten to like being in a position where you can be the guy that exercises mercy, right? Yeah. And so it's like, to me, it's when I know what you're saying. I know you're trying to, I think you're trying to be humble and stuff like that. But when you say like just this or maybe, I'm just like, no, man, you're doing. To me, that's greatness right there. It's like you just consistently do. What else can somebody ask of you? And I'm sure you feel this. You felt this before. It's like when I do that, when I do what I can, and maybe it's not. Maybe I didn't sell 1 million books or whatever. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't get any results. Maybe I didn't get any comments or likes or whatever. But I lay down to sleep at night, and I'm just like, I did what I can. Every molecule in my, this is how I phrase it, every molecule in my body, it feels like it did the right thing. And it's the deepest peace. I haven't felt that. I didn't start feeling that until I started writing. I was just like, this is like, a giant ass meteor could come and squish me right now. I'd be all right with it. Yeah. You're okay with what you've done, and I know exactly what you mean about laying your head down at night, because I used to hate going to sleep at night. I couldn't go to sleep because I was like, something was missing from the day, and I couldn't put a finger on it. Right. It was always like, what the fuck? I like wore myself out to the point of I can't stand anymore. Like through workouts or whatever it is, and it's not until I've started doing this and writing that I've come to a point where like I can sleep so peacefully at night, man. I can go to sleep multiple times a day if I need to. Yeah. That's awesome, man. It's a wonderful feeling. Right. And like I get up in the morning and it's like, maybe I'm a little draggy or whatever sometimes, but it's not like I was in high school where I was like, fuck, how do I get out of this? It's completely different. I'm just like, I got shit to do. Let's get cracking, and I'm not dragging my feet or thinking of excuses. I'm thinking up reasons on how I can do better that day rather than reasons of how I can do less. It's a completely different mentality. It's the difference between being the hunter and the prey. The prey gets traumatized. The hunter, like, they get invigorated when they go out and bring something back. That's how I see it, anyways. No, it's man. I feel like we could go on for a long time, dude. Sure. Like, this has been fantastic. I think I'm gonna break this up into two different podcasts because it's 2 hours long. Yeah, that's what I usually do. I usually go for 2 hours and then split it into 2 episodes. This has been amazing, man. Talking to you, it's been eye-opening. Hey, it's my pleasure. My pleasure, man. I'm flattered that you reached out to me. That's right. I'm glad we were able to connect for sure. Is there anything you want to leave with the good listeners out there to remember you by? Well, I wish we had gotten a little more into the practical advice of like how to balance stuff, but let's maybe not to. I hope it's all right. Not to. What's that? Maybe next time. Yeah, maybe next time. Yeah, let's see. I hope it's okay not to end on like a giant inspirational note and just throw out some quick tips I found.
Do it.
Okay, so like you're talking, you and I and a bunch of writers, they get really wound up trying to get all their ideas out, and it can hurt time management. So what I end up doing is if I have ideas at the end of my word count, I just write a quick synopsis in parentheses. And that just it just gives me a feeling of security. I'm like, okay, I have an idea of what I'm going to get out next time. I can just reference it real quick.
I like that.
So,
okay.
Yeah, that really helped with my time management. And so, yeah.
Then it gives your brain a couple.
A whole other podcast, but
then it gives your brain like a day to work on that synopsis too, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Cool, man. Yeah, and I'm gonna get back into Echo. Like I said, with this, I've been getting like 10 to 20% into every author's book that I read or that I interview, and so like I joked with some friends that I'm never gonna read another book again in my entire life. I'll just read the first 20% of a million books.
Dude, I'm flattered that you got number one at all and read one page. So if it starts dragging, then feel free to switch to something else, man. I'm definitely not gonna be offended. I'll be flattered that you read it at all. So.
No, it's been really good so far, and I recommend it to everybody to check out. I would love to have you allow us to read from like chapter 1 or 2 from Echo, if you would, on bedtime stories. And if you want to take some time to think about it, that's cool. You can check out bedtime stories on the YouTube channel. It's me and my girlfriend reading from some of the authors' books in my bed. And
okay, I'm pretty sure I'd be open to it. There's a couple issues. Number one is like there's stuff in italics which denotes personal thought. So I was asked, I'm not sure how that come across, because sometimes you have to like say it, right? You can't just like if I say like if a character thinks like fuck in italics because like something bad is happening, and I read that, it doesn't necessarily like if somebody's looking at it, they understand that it's the character's thought. Like
right.
I would have to. So that I know there's a few of those in chapter 1, but also my friend's coming to visit from March 1st to 20th, so it'll have to be after that because this week's back, and then I got his visit.
Yeah.
So yeah, like let me know what you want me to do, and I'm happy to accommodate.
Well, as long as you allow us to do it, we do a live broadcast of it at like 9:00 at night, so it'd be like 5:00 or 6:00 your time. And then the author usually comes in the live chat and talks to us while we're doing the reading. And then
I could do just audio. I don't like being.
No, it's typing. You type.
Oh, typing. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because it's a live broadcast on YouTube, and then like we'll break down what we read in the first chapter and talk about it, and then the author will interact with us and the other people in the chat, and just kind of. It's pretty cool.
That sounds fun, man. After March 20th for sure.
And then we give away a free copy of the book too. So I buy a copy.
I don't know how to do that, but I could just buy one and mail it out to.
Well, that's what I do. I buy the book and then I give it to whoever.
Okay. Well, I'll let go you any costs for that.
Oh, okay.
yeah. But I'll get back with you after March 20th, I guess.
Yeah. Can't wait. This has been a pleasure talking to you, man. I'll keep following the blog. Anything in between, we got the emails. We'll talk, and I'll let you know as soon as this comes out, okay?
Sure. This has been awesome talking to you, man.
Watching this video, if you would, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification for the bell. You know what? We love you. You know what?